Right now, there's a hole in the middle of everything you see. You're staring straight at this, the screen, the words, the room around it, and a piece of it is simply missing. Not blurry, not dark, gone. There's a blind spot sitting in each of your eyes, big enough to swallow 9 full moons lined up side by side, and you have never once noticed it. Because your brain won't let you. Every waking second, it quietly paints over that hole with a guess. A forgery so smooth that you've spent your entire life believing you can see the world. You can't, not the way you think you can. By the end of this, 3 things are going to happen. You're going to prove that hole exists with your own eye in about 60 seconds. You're going to find out why it's there and why your brain works so hard to hide it. And then you're going to learn the part that actually keeps me up at night, that the blind spot is just the beginning and almost nothing you've ever seen was really there. So keep your eyes on the screen. That, it turns out, is exactly the problem. Let's find the hole. Here's how you catch your own brain lying. Hold your hand out at arm's length and stick up your thumb and your index finger a few inches apart. Now close your right eye. With just your left eye, stare hard at your thumb. Don't let your gaze drift, lock onto the thumb. Your index finger is still there, off to the side, sitting in the corner of your vision. Now slowly bring your hand toward your face, still staring dead at the thumb. And somewhere along the way, it happens fast, your index finger vanishes. The whole fingertip, it doesn't go dark, it doesn't blur, the empty space just closes over it like it was never there, and your brain fills the gap with whatever's behind it. Move your eye a hair and the finger snaps back into existence. You just found the hole. That spot is real, and it lives in the same place in every human eye on Earth. It has a name, the optic disc, though blind spot is honest enough. And the wild thing is that it's not a flaw that slipped through. It's not a defect a few unlucky people have. It's not something that gets worse with age. Every single person watching this has 2 of them right now and has had them since the day they were born. So what is it? Why is there a dead zone punched into the middle of the one sense you trust more than any other? For that, we have to look at the single strangest design decision in your entire body. Let's talk about why the hole is even there. The back of your eye is lined with light detectors, around 120 million rods for seeing in the dark and about 6 million cones for color. That's 126 million tiny cameras all wired up and pointing out at the world. Incredible, except your eye was built backwards. I mean that literally. In your eye, the light detectors face the wrong way, away from the light. Before a single photon can reach them, it has to pass through a tangled forest of nerves and blood vessels, and wiring that sits in front of the detectors instead of behind them. It's like installing a camera sensor upside down and running all the cables across the lens. And all that wiring has to get out of your eye somehow, to carry the signal back to your brain. So it bundles together into one thick cable, the optic nerve, and punches a hole straight through the retina to escape. Right there, at that hole, there's no room for light detectors, none. It's a bald patch in your field of cameras. That's your blind spot. It exists because your eye is wired inside out, and the price of that wiring is a hole in your sight. Now here's the part that should sting a little. There's an animal that got this right, and it's not a mammal. It's not a bird, it's the octopus. An octopus eye is wired the correct way round, detectors facing the light, cables tucked neatly behind. An octopus has no blind spot. So the next time you feel like the smartest thing in the room, remember, a creature that tastes with its arms has better eyes than you. Evolution doesn't hand out do-overs. It just builds on whatever came before, mistakes and all. And this mistake is nearly 600 million years old. But a hole in your eye is one thing. The truly unsettling part is what your brain does about it. And to see that, we have to go back about 3.5 centuries to a room full of nobles who watched a scientist make a king vanish. Let's meet the man who made a king disappear. It's the 1660s. A French physicist named Edmé Mariotte is poking around inside dissected eyeballs, and he notices something everybody else had missed for thousands of years, that patch on the retina where the nerve leaves with nothing on it. And Mariotte, being the kind of man who liked a good show, works out how to use it. He goes to the French court, to the palace, and he sets up a little demonstration for the nobility and by some accounts for the king himself. He has people stand at a precise distance and close one eye and fix their gaze on a certain point. And then he places another person, or in the royal version of the story, a portrait of the king off to the side at exactly the right angle, and the head disappears, just like your finger did a minute ago. A room full of powerful people, one at a time, quietly beheading the king with nothing but their own broken eyes. You have to appreciate the nerve of it. 300 years before anyone understood the brain, a man walked into a palace and used a hole in your head to do a magic trick on royalty. No cameras, no science degree required to be amazed. Just a candle, a distance, and the strangest fact about being human, that there's a blank spot in your sight and you've never seen it. But Marriott only found the hole. He couldn't explain the real mystery. Why don't we see the hole? If there's a dead patch in each eye, why isn't there a black dot floating in front of you all day? The answer is the whole point of this video, and it's where things stop being a fun trick and start being genuinely disturbing. Let's talk about the lie your brain tells to cover it. When the light from the world hits your blind spot, your brain gets nothing. No signal, a gap in the data. And a reasonable brain would just show you the gap, a little hole, a black dot, a missing pixel. Your brain does not do that. Instead, it looks at what's around the hole and it makes something up. If the hole falls on a stretch of blue wall, your brain paints blue over it. If it falls on a wooden floor, your brain guesses more wood. If it falls on a striped shirt, it continues the stripes. It's filling in the gap with a best guess and then presenting that guess to you as if it were real, seamless, no warning label. This isn't primitive. This isn't rare. This is the machine painting over reality thousands of times a second and passing off the fake as the genuine article. Think about what that actually means. When your finger vanished earlier, your brain didn't show you a hole where the finger was. It showed you more of the background. It invented empty space and handed it to you as fact. You looked directly at a lie and felt completely certain you were seeing the truth, and you had no way to tell the difference. That's the terror of it. The forgery is perfect from the inside. There is no little alarm that goes off when your brain starts making things up. It just makes them up and you nod along because you've been doing it your whole life. And if you're thinking, okay, fine, but that's just one tiny spot, the rest of my vision is real, right? I've got bad news. The hole was the easy part. The filling in you can test. The next problem you can't. Let's talk about the hole you can't test. Hold your eyes still and look at one word on this screen. Really lock on. Now, without moving your eyes, try to read the words 3 lines above it. You can't, they're a blur. You know letters are there, but you can't make them out. Only a tiny patch right at the dead center of your gaze is actually sharp. That patch is called the fovea, and it's shockingly small, about 1 to 2 degrees of your vision, roughly the size of your thumbnail held at arm's length. That is the only part of the world you ever see in crisp, full detail. Everything else, the entire rest of the room, the edges of the screen, the person sitting next to you, is smeared, low resolution, and worse, nearly colorless. Your color vision falls apart fast the moment you move away from the center. Out in the corners of your eye, you're almost colorblind. So how come the whole world looks sharp and colorful all the time? Say it with me. Your brain is making it up. It remembers what color the wall was when you last looked directly at it, and it smears that color across the parts you're not looking at. It fills the fuzzy edges with detail it isn't actually receiving. You feel like you're looking out at a wide, sharp, colorful world. You are looking out through a straw the width of your thumbnail, and your brain is painting the rest from memory and habit. A lion doesn't get this luxury. A lion has to actually track its prey. You get to walk around inside a beautiful high-definition movie that your brain is largely inventing in real time. It's more comfortable. It is also technically a hallucination you've agreed to believe, and it gets worse because your eyes don't even hold still. They're jumping around constantly, and every time they jump you go blind. Let's talk about going blind every time your eyes move. Your eyes are not cameras smoothly panning across a scene. They move in sharp little jerks called saccades, flicking from point to point 3, maybe 4 times every second. Between each flick they hold still for a fraction of a second to grab an image, then snap to the next spot. Right now, reading this line, your eyes are making a series of tiny jumps across the text, you just don't feel it. Here's the problem. When your eyes whip across a room that fast, the image on your retina should be a smeared, nauseating blur, like footage from a camera someone threw down the stairs. But you never see that blur, ever. Why? Because during each jump your brain switches the picture off. It literally shuts down vision for the duration of the movement, and then stitches the still images together afterwards so smoothly you swear you saw one continuous world. Add up all those little blackouts all day and you spend a real chunk of your waking life completely blind. Some estimates land around 40 minutes a day of pure, edited-out darkness, and you have never once caught it happening. You cannot catch it happening. The blindness is deleted from your memory before you ever get to notice. You want proof you can do yourself? Look at a clock with a ticking second hand. Glance away, then flick your eyes back to it. For a moment that first second seems to last too long, like the hand froze before it moved again. That's not the clock, that's you. Your brain took the blank blindness from your eye jump and backfilled it with a frozen image of the clock, stretching that 1 second to cover the gap. It's called chronostasis, and it means your brain is quietly rewriting time to hide its own blackouts. You're not just missing pieces of space, you're missing pieces of time and being lied to about both. Let's talk about the things your brain quietly deletes. Here's a fun one. Your nose is in your field of vision right now. It's always been there, a big blurry pink wall jutting into the bottom corner of each eye. Every second you're awake, you don't see it. Your brain decided long ago that the nose never changes and never matters, so it edits it out entirely. Now that I've said it, you'll see it for a minute. Then your brain will erase it again and you'll forget it exists. You're welcome for that, by the way. Same with the little squiggly threads that sometimes drift across your vision, floaters, bits of debris inside the eye itself. They're there constantly. Your brain hides most of them because they don't change in an interesting way. And it goes further. If you could hold an image perfectly, completely still on your retina, no eye movement at all, it would fade and disappear within seconds. Vanish. It's called Troxler fading, and it reveals the brain's real rule for what you're allowed to see. Your eyes don't report reality, they report change. Anything that stays the same, your brain assumes is furniture and quietly stops showing you. Sit with that for a second because it flips everything. You think your eyes exist to show you the world. They don't. They exist to show you what's different from a moment ago, a moving shadow, a new face, a thing that wasn't there before. The steady, unchanging world. Your brain files that under boring and paints it in from memory. You are not watching reality. You are watching a difference report dressed up as a full picture. But deleting things is the least of what your brain gets up to. Because it doesn't just trim the world down, it rebuilds it from the ground up, starting with something you'd think there's no way to get wrong. Which way is up? Let's talk about the world being upside down. The lens in the front of your eye works like every other lens. It bends the light coming in, and in the process it flips the image. So the picture landing on the back of your eye right now is upside down, and backwards. The ceiling is at the bottom, the floor is at the top. Every image your eye has ever captured has been flipped your entire life. You just never knew because your brain quietly turns it right side up before it ever reaches you. Which raises an unsettling question. If up and down are just a setting your brain applies, what happens if you mess with the setting? In the 1890s, a psychologist named George Stratton decided to find out, and he did it to himself. He built a pair of goggles that flipped the world upside down, strapped them on, and refused to take them off. At first, it was exactly the nightmare you'd expect. He reached down for things that were up. He felt sick and dizzy just crossing a room. His whole world was wrong. And then, after about a week, his brain gave up fighting and simply flipped everything. The upside-down world through the upside-down goggles started looking normal, right side up. He could reach, walk, function. His brain had rewritten which way was up to match the new input. And here's the kicker. When he finally took the goggles off, the real world looked upside down to him for a while until his brain flipped it back. There is no up inside your eyes, there's no down either. Those are decisions your brain makes and can unmake in a week. And if it can invent which way is up, wait until you hear what it does with color. Let's talk about a color that isn't real. Look at something red near you. A logo, a book, anything. That red you're seeing, it's not out there, it does not exist in the object. Out in the world, there is no such thing as red. There's only light waves of different lengths bouncing off things. A so-called red apple is just an apple reflecting one particular wavelength, a specific length of vibration, and there is nothing red about a length. Red is not in the apple. Red is a feeling your brain manufactures when that wavelength hits the cones in your eye. The color lives in your skull, not on the fruit. And you can prove it by looking at other animals. A dog sees the world in far fewer colors than you. A bee sees ultraviolet, a whole band of color you can't imagine, painted across flowers as landing strips you'll never see. And the mantis shrimp, this little sea creature, has up to 16 types of color receptor where you have 3. Whatever it's seeing, you have no word for it and never will. Same world, same light, wildly different colors because color was never in the world to begin with. It's a story each brain tells itself. If you were online a few years back, you already lived through the proof. That photo of a dress, millions of people, dead certain it was blue and black, screaming at millions of other people who were just as certain it was white and gold. Same photo, same exact pixels hitting every eye, but people's brains guessed the lighting differently, so they invented different colors and swore theirs was the truth. That's not a fun internet argument. That's a glitch in the matrix, caught on camera, where you got to watch human brains paint the same thing 2 different colors and each side call the other crazy. So your brain flips the world and paints the colors. At this point, you might be hoping that at least the timing is real, that when you see something happen, it's happening now. It isn't. You're always a little late. Let's talk about how you live in the past. Light hits your eye at basically the speed of light, instant, but turning that light into a picture you actually experience takes work, and work takes time. Your brain needs somewhere around a tenth of a second, roughly 80 to 100 milliseconds, to process the signal into the image you consciously see, which means the world you're looking at right now already happened. You are always watching a version of reality from a fraction of a second ago. You live permanently in the past, and you can never catch up. Normally that tenth of a second wouldn't matter much, but it matters a lot if a car is coming or a ball is flying at your face. If you only ever saw the past, you'd always be reaching a beat too late. So your brain does something outrageous to fix it. It predicts. It takes the slightly old information, calculates where everything should be by now, and shows you that guess instead a forecast dressed up as the present moment. You don't see where the ball is. You see where your brain bets the ball will be. Most of the time it's right, so you catch it and feel like a genius. When it's wrong, the ball smacks you in the nose, and for one honest second you get to feel what it's like when the prediction fails and the past catches up. So let's take stock of everything your brain is doing behind your back. It punches a hole in your sight and paints over it. It shows you a thumbnail of sharp vision and fakes the rest. It blacks out during every eye movement and hides the darkness. It deletes your nose. It flips the whole world right side up. It invents every color you've ever seen, and it shows you a predicted version of a world that already happened. That's a lot of trust to place in a machine that lies this fluently. And when you finally take away its input completely, it doesn't stop. It just stops holding back. Let's talk about what happens when the filling in won't stop. There's a condition called Charles Bonnet syndrome, named after a Swiss man who in the 1700s watched his own grandfather describe it. It happens to people who are going blind, often older people losing their sight to disease. Their eyes stop sending signals, and their brains, starved of input, do the only thing they know how to do: they fill in. Except now there's nothing real to fill in around, so the brain invents the whole thing. These people, many of them fully aware they can't see, begin to watch vivid, detailed hallucinations. Not blurs, not shapes, flowers blooming across the floor, tiny people in old-fashioned clothes walking through the room, buildings, faces, patterns crawling up the walls, all in rich color, all completely silent, all utterly convincing. Their eyes have gone dark, and their brains have responded by screening a movie against the black. And here's the quiet horror of it. These people aren't broken. Their brains are doing the exact same thing yours is doing this very second, taking incomplete information and confidently manufacturing the rest. The only difference is that their filling in has nothing left to anchor to, so the invention runs wild. For you, the machine has just enough real signal to stay tethered. But it is the same machine, the same brush, the same willingness to paint a world that isn't there and swear to you it's real. You are always a few missing signals away from seeing things that were never in the room. You're telling me my brain will straight up generate a fake world if you take away its input? Yes, it will. It does it in miniature every time your finger vanishes into your blind spot. Charles Bonnet is just that same trick with the volume turned all the way up. So if your brain fills in holes, invents color, deletes your nose, blacks out during movement, and hallucinates when it's desperate, how much of what you see can you actually trust? There's one last experiment that answers that, and it's the most humbling of all because it doesn't need a blind spot or a disease. It works on people with perfect eyes. Let's talk about the gorilla nobody saw. In 1999, two researchers, Daniel Simons and Christopher Chabris, ran an experiment that's now famous. They filmed a group of people passing basketballs, some in white shirts, some in black. They asked viewers to do one simple job: count how many times the players in white passed the ball. Easy. People counted. They concentrated. They got the number. Then the researchers asked a different question: did you see the gorilla? Because halfway through the video, a person in a full gorilla suit walks right into the middle of the group, stops, beats their chest, and strolls off. On screen for a solid 9 seconds, impossible to miss. And roughly half the people who watched half never saw it. Not a blurry glimpse they forgot. Nothing. Their eyes pointed directly at a chest-thumping gorilla, and their brains, busy counting passes, decided a gorilla wasn't relevant and left it out of the picture they showed to their own mind. This is the final blow. It's not just that your eyes have holes. It's not just that your brain paints over the gaps. It's that what you consciously see is filtered by what you're expecting and what you care about in that instant. You don't see the world. You see the tiny slice of it your brain has decided is worth rendering. Everything else, even a gorilla standing right in front of you, can be dropped without a trace, and you'll never know it was there, because you can't miss what your brain never bothered to show you. So let's go back to the question we started with. Why is there a hole in your vision you can't see? The honest answer is bigger than the hole. The hole is there because your eye is built backwards and the nerve has to punch through to escape. You can't see it because your brain fills it in. But the blind spot was never really the point. It was the crack in the wall, the one place where you can catch in a controlled little test the thing your brain is doing everywhere all the time, filling in, guessing, editing, deleting. Painting a smooth, sharp, colorful, continuous world out of a stream of broken, partial, blurry, blacked-out scraps. You have never seen reality, not once, not the room you're in, not the face of a single person you love. What you have seen every moment of your life is your brain's best guess, a story it builds fast enough and convincingly enough to keep you alive and moving. Most of the time, the guess is close enough, that's all it has to be. So the next time you're certain about something, certain you saw exactly what happened, certain your eyes couldn't be wrong, remember the finger that vanished. Remember the king who disappeared at the French court. Remember the gorilla that half the world walked right past. There is a hole in your vision right now in each eye, and your brain is painting over it as you read this final sentence. It's been lying to you your whole life, and the strangest part, it's the only reason you can see anything at all. So here's what I want to know. When your finger disappeared into your blind spot earlier, did it actually work for you? Tell me below. And if this rewired the way you look at, well, everything, you already know what to do.